Today, we're diving into a comparative analysis of how women are portrayed in two of the world's most influential religious texts, the Quran and the Bible. This is a complex topic with varying interpretations, but we're using AI to guide our research and keep the analysis logical, evidence-based, and unbiased. AI allows us to explore these texts without emotional bias toward any one religion, helping us reach conclusions that are grounded in data and analysis rather than subjective interpretation. First, let's look at the origin stories involving women in both texts. In the Bible's book of Genesis, we encounter the creation of Eve. According to the text, Eve was created from Adam's rib, signifying that woman was made to be a helper for man. This story has been interpreted in many ways, some suggesting a subordinate role for women, as she is depicted as an extension of man. In contrast, the Quran's account doesn't specify Eve being created from Adam's rib. The Quran mentions that humanity was created from a single soul, suggesting a shared origin without highlighting a hierarchy between genders. This difference in origin narrative sets the stage for how women's roles are presented throughout each text. Moving to the roles of women as depicted in family and society, we see further distinctions. In the Bible, various passages in the Old and New Testaments outline the roles of wives and mothers. For example, the book of Ephesians in the New Testament encourages women to submit to their husbands, often interpreted as a call for a supportive, secondary role in the household. This notion has influenced traditional Christian family structures, where women are frequently viewed as caretakers and supporters. In the Quran, however, there is also an emphasis on the roles of women within the family, but with a different approach to authority and responsibility. In Surah An-Nisa, the Quran speaks about men being maintainers of women, meaning they are responsible for financial support. However, it emphasizes mutual responsibility and respect between spouses. Additionally, the Quran mentions that women have certain rights regarding inheritance, marriage, and divorce, which were relatively progressive for the time. This approach suggests a model of balance and shared responsibilities within family life, rather than outright dominance by either gender. Now, let's address a central theme in both texts: modesty. In the Bible, modesty is discussed mainly in the New Testament, where women are encouraged to dress modestly and refrain from drawing attention to themselves through elaborate hairstyles or jewelry. This concept of modesty is often interpreted as an instruction for women to remain humble and submissive, fitting into the broader traditional view of women as secondary figures. The Quran also discusses modesty, but it emphasizes it as a mutual responsibility for both men and women. The concept of hijab, or covering, is often misunderstood as a female-specific requirement, but the Quran first instructs men to lower their gaze and behave modestly before addressing similar instructions to women. This mutual call for modesty reflects an approach where both genders share responsibility in maintaining moral and respectful conduct. When it comes to legal rights, both texts present notable differences. In the Bible, legal rights for women are not extensively detailed. Historically, Christian societies have derived their legal standards from broader cultural and societal norms, often resulting in limited rights for women in areas like inheritance, property ownership, and divorce. The Quran, however, explicitly grants women rights to inheritance, divorce, and property ownership. In fact, Surah An-Nisa lays out specific portions of inheritance for women, which was revolutionary compared to pre-Islamic Arabian customs, where women had few to no legal rights. Though some may argue that the specific shares are unequal by modern standards, the mere inclusion of women's inheritance rights in religious doctrine was a significant advancement for that era. This suggests that the Quran aimed to uplift women's rights in a way that was progressive for its time. On the topic of spiritual equality, both texts offer unique perspectives. In the Bible, there are passages that suggest women should maintain a quieter role in religious settings. For example, in 1 Timothy, it's written that women should learn in silence and not assume authority over men in religious matters. This perspective has influenced some Christian denominations to limit women's roles within the church, reserving leadership roles for men. The Quran, by contrast, presents men and women as spiritually equal in their capacity to seek God and perform good deeds. In Surah Al-Ahzab, the Quran speaks to both men and women equally, emphasizing that they are partners in faith. Both are held accountable for their actions, and both have the potential to achieve spiritual fulfillment. This suggests a model of spiritual equality where gender does not determine one's relationship with God or access to salvation. Another important area of comparison is the treatment of prominent female figures. In the Bible, we see women like Mary, the mother of Jesus, playing central roles. Mary is revered, and her role as the mother of Christ is pivotal in Christian theology. However, other women in the Bible, like Jezebel or Delilah, are often portrayed negatively, reinforcing certain stereotypes about women's roles and behavior. In the Quran, Mary, or Maryam, is also a central figure and is even granted an entire chapter in her name, emphasizing her piety and strength. Additionally, women like Khadijah, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, and Aisha, another influential figure, are celebrated for their contributions and intellect. The Quran's inclusion of these respected female figures shows an acknowledgement of women's potential to shape religious and social narratives. What can we deduce from these comparisons? Based on our analysis, we see that both texts reflect the societal values of their respective times. However, the Quran's approach toward women's rights and roles in family, society, and spirituality offers more explicit protections and rights than what we find in the Bible. This doesn't necessarily make one text superior to the other, but highlights the different ways these religions have approached gender issues. The Quran includes explicit guidelines aimed at improving women's status in a 7th century Arabian context, while the Bible reflects the patriarchal norms of ancient Jewish and early Christian societies. So, what's the conclusion? Using AI's unbiased approach, we can observe that both texts have shaped women's roles in different ways. The Quran provides certain explicit rights and protections that were progressive for its time, while the Bible's depiction of women's roles is often more open to interpretation and influenced by the cultural norms surrounding early Christianity. If you found this comparative analysis insightful, please like this video and subscribe for more evidence-based examinations of faith, history, and culture through an AI perspective. Share this video with anyone curious about the roles of women in religious texts. And as always, let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you see the portrayal of women evolving in religious contexts over time? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.